What's up, everybody? Another start to the week here, and we have brought you something that so many of you have been asking about for the past few months. As we know, there are so many other things still going on for Darrell Brooks in his life, in court, in criminal court with multiple charges in different jurisdictions. And we have some finality on some charges and others that are going to trial potentially this month. We're going to discuss all those charges today, where he is, how his most recent sentencing is affected by the Waukesha sentencing. We're going to get into all that, answer all of the questions you've been sending me on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, when this sentencing came down, and more news about him trickles out. So we'll get to all of that and more today. Hit that like button if you are some of the people that are still interested in this Darrell Brooks situation, I guess I'll call it. It's not one individual case. He is appealing the Waukesha case. I have not heard any updates with that appeal, but we will continue to follow it. And now we have a situation that even if he were to win that appeal, he would still be in prison because of the sentencing we're going to talk about today. So make sure you subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, but let's jump into it. So the first set of charges we're going to talk about include the intimidation charges. He's got multiple charges surrounding the situation with his ex-girlfriend and things that happened with them prior to the Waukesha parade, even the day of the Waukesha parade, including recklessly endangering safety, using intimidation, threats, or force against victims, and a single charge of bail jumping. Those are all felonies. And then he also has misdemeanor charges of battery, disorderly conduct, battery, and resisting arrest of an officer. Okay, so all of those charges he has not pled to at this point. He has not admitted wrongdoing, but instead, those charges are set for later this month to go to trial. He has a public defender right now, but some people have guessed that on the eve of trial, he will represent himself and try those cases again. And if that happens, my guess is we will be following it. I believe August 14th, next Monday, a week from today, is when those charges could potentially go to trial. And if they do go to trial, will we see some of the same antics? Now, we've seen him strapped to a wheelchair multiple times in this courtroom in Milwaukee. We have seen him more subdued, less outlandish, less outrageous, less obnoxious in these hearings leading up to the trial on these charges. So will that make him different throughout the trial? Will he sit back and let somebody try the case? Those are all questions we don't know the answer to yet, but he has not started representing himself just yet on those charges, and they are set for trial August 14th. Now, the lesser known charges that he had his sentencing recently because he pled guilty to was a situation back in July of 2020 before the Waukesha parade. And this was centered around allegedly firing a firearm at or around his nephew, or his nephew's friend. And he entered a plea deal. Okay. And one of the reasons that he entered a plea deal is the victims basically disappeared or would not cooperate with the prosecution. And without the victim's input, it would be difficult, obviously, for prosecutors to go forward on some reckless endangerment type of a charge. And we're going to watch a video, at least a part of this sentencing hearing, to hear from Darrell Brooks, to hear from the judge, and to hear from his lawyer to break down what they said. But Darrell Brooks, at this juncture with this case, says he wants to take responsibility for the mistake he made that day. Made no mention of the Waukesha parade, but we know he has it in him. He is physically able to admit wrongdoing. He is physically able to look back on a situation where he made a mistake and say, I made a mistake there. And he still has not done that for the Waukesha parade. Now, appellate issues going on. I don't blame him for that. If he decides to say, I'm innocent still, I didn't do it, which is just an impossible stance or discussion at this point based on video evidence and a jury's verdict. But that's the reason why he's not apologizing. Okay, hopefully we get an apology and a recognition of wrongdoing, and an admission of that wrongdoing once all of the appellate avenues are exhausted. So let's take a look at this video together. And it's kind of like a news clip. It's 2 minutes long, but it also gives us some quotes from Darrell Brooks, some quotes from the judge, some quotes from his lawyer that will give us an idea and some more discussion points. And also, this is a public defender that represented him throughout the entirety of this case, that he ended up taking a plea deal on just one count. So they got rid of a couple counts that were the reckless endangerment, and they kept the, I believe it was possession of a firearm by a felon is what he pled guilty to.
Brooks appeared virtually in court Monday morning from the Dodge County Correctional Facility, where he's currently serving 6 life sentences for the Waukesha parade attack in 2021. When he drove through the parade, Brooks had 2 violent crime cases pending.
Mr. Brooks, are you pleading guilty to the charge of felon in possession of a firearm as charged in count 3 because you are, in fact, guilty of that offense?
Yes, I am.
Brooks now admitting in a plea deal to carrying a firearm as a convicted felon back in 2020 when prosecutors charged him with shooting at his own nephew.
I just want to take responsibility for the mistake I made that day.
Judge David Feiss sentenced Brooks to 2 years, a punishment he acknowledged doesn't matter given his current life imprisonment.
So he gets a 2-year sentence. Again, he admits it. It seems like there were some tears there again from Mr. Brooks, which is not unusual for him. 2-year sentence. The judge says basically this doesn't make a difference because you've got 6 life sentences you're serving. He does end up running them concurrent, meaning at the same time as the 6 life sentences. But if he were to win the appeal, get it overturned, get the case thrown out, not going to happen. But if that were to happen, in legal land, we always like to give all of the answers that we can, depending on hypotheticals. If that were to happen, he pled guilty, so he would still have this 2-year sentence. And while you can appeal a situation where you pled guilty, if your lawyer did something shady or something comes out, very unlikely to win when you pled and admitted that you did it on the record, and you got sentenced to 2 years. So at the very least, Darrell Brooks at least admits he deserves 2 years in prison. So he will be serving that. I don't know if there's a time served element to it or anything like that, but let's hear a little bit from the judge.
What happened in Waukesha is that happened, and you've gone through that process. There's nothing that I am going to do that is going to materially impact your situation.
The Waukesha incident definitely colored.
This is Darrell Brooks' lawyer now. So he says, basically, there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to impact your life, because your life has the dark cloud of Waukesha over it forever. And you will never forget Waukesha, and Waukesha will never stop affecting your life because of what you did that day, basically, is what the judge says. So this 2-year sentence on some, gun possession charge, maybe no big deal, but we're still doing it. Still the right thing. Legal process has to take its place. And you pled guilty, admitted wrongdoing, apologized for it, which is more than we can say that Darrell Brooks did in other situations where he had the opportunity to do so. So now let's hear from his lawyer. This next person that's going to come on the screen is his public defender, who said he thinks it kind of sounds like he says Darrell Brooks gets a bad rap because of Waukesha, but deservedly so.
Or situation.
The Waukesha incident definitely colors what everybody thinks of Mr. Brooks, but this happened well before then.
It was a stupid mistake. Definitely something that I knew better than to be doing. And, I'm just ready to move forward now.
In his speech, Brooks made no mention of the Waukesha Christmas parade, and Judge David Feiss even went as far as to thank Brooks for his cooperation in this case. Now,
imagine that, right? A criminal defendant. I mean, that does happen a lot where judges are like, thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for, being under control and, being professional throughout this court process. But especially when you know that somebody has what Darrell Brooks has in him in the courtroom, the disrespect, the arguments, the, aggressive nature towards Judge Darrell in the past. And he basically is thanking Darrell Brooks for not doing any of that throughout these proceedings. And if we listen to it, the small clips that we did see from Darrell Brooks, it does seem like he's being respectful and honorable and admitting what he did was wrong, admitting it was a mistake, admitting he knew he shouldn't have done it. So I think that deserves some praise, right? I mean, some people are going to disagree with that and think this guy deserves no praise ever, but even if he just gets this much better in how he acts in the courtroom and gets a little bit more respectful, that is still something to praise and be thankful for, and hope people get this much better every single day, right? We can always hope it, even for people like Darrell Brooks, and I do hope it for him. And I hope he continues to do that.
Brooks will be appearing in front of a judge next week for a separate case where he's accused of running over the mother of his children. Reporting in Milwaukee.
And those are the charges we read earlier. The intimidation, the threats, the battery. And that's his ex-girlfriend and mother of his children that testified against him, Erica, in the Waukesha case. So that case is still pending. So we are still not done with all of Darrell Brooks's cases.
Milwaukee. Madison Moore, WISN 12 News.
Today's plea deal came about after the state could not locate nor secure the cooperation of the victims to testify in that case.
So, again, you see how witness cooperation is even important when you have a criminal defendant like Darrell Brooks, because you need their cooperation usually to prove to the jury that there is a victim in the case, to prove what happened that day. Now, possession of a firearm, usually law enforcement and other people can testify to that. So Darrell Brooks can still get sunk if he was going to take it to trial. And maybe he took the plea deal in response or only with the agreement that the other cases would go away. And that could have all been part of something that was negotiated. And at the end of the day, Darrell Brooks pleads guilty, gets 2 years, run concurrently with his 6 life sentences. So again, his life not materially changed, but punished for yet another crime, admitting a crime at this point, with still more pending that are supposed to go to trial next week. We'll have to do some more updates and see if that actually is coming, or what delays may be hampering that situation. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any more questions or any more updates coming for Darrell Brooks, I'd love to hear them in the comments so we can continue this dialogue. But for now, that's all I've got. Till next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast, featuring new episodes every week. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.